A happy ending is a satisfying ending. Keep that in mind. Satisfying is what you're looking for. Hollywood actually knows this, even though I don't think they do a good job with Act 3. They know that the main characters blowing themselves up at the end of a story heroically is actually a satisfying ending in a lot of stories, and that's a happy ending. If you go watch you guys seen the movie I Am Legend? They have a director's commentary on an alternate ending, and they actually call the one that the movie ends with the Hollywood ending, which is everyone dying, but heroically. And the non-Hollywood ending is them surviving, because it kind of fizzles out a little bit. And actually it is a better ending, I think. But they felt that test audience would actually like the ending of everyone dying better, and they were right. The storytellers I know all like the second ending better. So you can go watch that and kind of see the comparison. That's just a happy ending versus satisfying ending thing. So anyway, Deus Ex Machina. Got a great story on this. People may not agree with me on this one. That's okay. I see this manifest. I like to do the show versus tell. Here's the show for you. I feel that the Lord of the Rings movies, which I assume most of you have seen, did a good job of this in one film and a bad job of this in the second film. We're talking only about the films. If you look at them, the second and third films have a similar climactic moment near the end of both films. In one film, we're at Helm's Deep, and there are a bunch of orcs. They're going to break in and kill us all. And in the next one, and this isn't the absolute ending, but near ending on a climactic moments, we're at Minas Tirith. Did I say that right, Tolkien fans? Minas Tirith. Okay, whatever. We'll get Vigo in here to pronounce it for us. They're surrounded by orcs, and the orcs are going to break in and kill them, right? Basically the same plot setup. All right? And in one, Gandalf shows up at the end and saves them with a new army. And I find it one of the most powerful moments in cinema. It's awesome, it's great, and I love it. And in the second one, Aragorn shows up with a bunch of ghosts and saves them. And I am so let down that it bugs me to this day. And I'm like, and I didn't even know. I'm like watching this, why did one of these work so wonderfully for me, and why did it not work so wonderfully for me in the second one? Does somebody have an answer?
Well, you start to ask yourself, well, why didn't they just go get them first, and they could have taken care of the whole thing this way?
Right, and why did they even fight? Yeah. Why did they, anyway. Everyone has an answer. I know you know. I'll just say it so that we don't. The reason for me was the plot setup as I went and analyzed. And this was just a gut reaction. It wasn't like I was sitting there analyzing them. I tried to avoid doing that, but afterward, gut reaction. And in the second movie, the plot setup is different. In the second movie, I was very well set up for Gandalf saying, "Look for me on the morning of the third day." And he promises them, "Look for me on the morning of the third day." And it sets up a plot cycle, which is survive 3 days and I will save you. And they trust Gandalf and they survive. Now, during the mess of all this, they kind of forget about that. We kind of forget about that. So as a nice, brilliant move at the end, Aragorn remembers Gandalf's voice as he looks and sees the sun rising on the third day. And we're all reminded. And then Gandalf shows up at the sunrise, right, in the light, and the light, blinds the orcs, and there's this big army, it comes, and it's awesome, right? And for me, they didn't pull off that setup. Now, longtime readers of the Tolkien books, and I had read them, but I'm not the big super Tolkien fan that a lot of people are. I enjoyed them. I think he did wonderful things, but I'm not like the scholar of Tolkien. They may have had a different experience where they know the ghosts are coming, they feel the setup is there. But for me, even though I knew in the back of my mind they were coming, the setup wasn't there for me. Gandalf walks off in the night. He doesn't promise he's going to save them. The people fight and die and struggle, and in the end, all of their struggle is meaningless, and only Aragorn with the ghost showing up means anything. That really bothers me from this aspect, because it's a different plot cycle. And I felt in the third movie, I was promised struggle hard, fight hard, defeat them, and you will win. That's what we need to do, not survive long enough for Aragorn to save us. Now, others may have had a different response to that, and that's okay. I'm just trying to get out kind of a show on one personal level, why one worked for me and one didn't, and it has to do with this.
Do you think it would have been different if the ghosts had clear limitations that were set up?
would have helped me a lot if they would have had limitations. And if I would have, and the lack of limitation on the ghosts, and Tolkien limited the ghosts in the books a lot more. But anyway, the idea here is if you're going to use magic to be solving problems in your books, explain that magic ahead of time. All right? Now, keep in mind that this is mostly talking about climactic moments. All right? If you have, and this is actually a larger storytelling concept. The larger storytelling concept here is foreshadow, right? Foreshadow what's going to save them. If, for instance, you have the character's good friend come out of nowhere and save him in Chapter 2, that's actually kind of okay because you're using that as character setup. The goal is not, is the main character going to survive? Everyone knows the main character is going to survive in Chapter 2, and so it's character setup. However, if the character is going to show up and save the main character at the end of the story, it requires a lot of good setup and foreshadowing, so you have a moment like Han Solo returning at end of the first Star Wars movie, or the fourth, depending on how you want to number them, which is a fantastic moment, well foreshadowed. All right? And you get a cheer rather than a, oh, he just got saved. That's not, any fun.
In Hollywood, they say 3 times is a good number to foreshadow for most audiences to
Yeah.
get something. How often should you do that in a book?
Depends on what your readers are feeling. Depends on the length of your book. I look for 3, but I don't check them off. I use my instincts, and I use what my writing group's saying and my test readers, okay? So this is just one thing to keep in mind about rules versus not. What you gain here is, and we are about out of time, so we may have to do the other 2 rules next week. What you gain here is there's a sliding scale where on one side you actually have what we call the sense of wonder. And on this side you have the solving problems. Or however you want to write it. This is the, you can use the magic. You have a lot of characters that understand the magic, understanding the magic. And you gain something on each side of the scale. You can totally write sense of wonder type magic, where the magic is mysterious and unknown. Don't use it to solve problems. Use it to make problems. Or when it does solve a problem, have it be something dreadful as the outcome. For instance, Tolkien actually does this pretty well. Even though Gandalf saving them from the Balrog is sort of a Deus Ex Machina, the end result is they don't have Gandalf anymore, which is a bigger deal in many ways than being chased by a Balrog.
Maybe have unpredictable something. So say for example, you use magic to solve this problem, but there's an unpredictable thing that happens as a result, and therefore it creates more.
Yeah, and usually though, the more your characters, main characters, viewpoint characters are going to use magic, the more you want to go this direction. And the less they are going to use it, the more it's going to happen to them, the more you go this direction. And just kind of keep this scale in mind for your magic systems. We'll talk about these other 2 because we don't have time. I want to give you time for your writing groups. But keep this in mind. Understand that what I mean by understanding the magic does not mean that the magic is scientific. All right? This is a problem people run into. Some of the hardest magic systems out there, and I call hard ones, the ones more on this side, are superhero magics, which are completely scientifically ridiculous, right? But when they're doing it well, you know exactly what the character can do and what they can accomplish. We know what Wolverine can do, right? He heals from wounds, he has claws that come out of him, and he's, strong and stuff. Wolverine does not fly. We know this. We don't really know that Gandalf can't fly. Maybe because he needs that giant eagle to come get him, but there's a piece of me that thinks Gandalf could probably fly if he really wanted to, And so, that's this idea. It doesn't mean that the magic is rational. It means it's consistent, okay? All right.
Earlier on, you said that magic and technology in science fiction settings kind of have the same...
Yes, they do.
How does that apply to the sliding scale?
Yes. Star Trek and Star Wars, over here. 2001, over here. The idea being that Star Trek focuses on the characters and what the technology can do, is less important than the character moments. They're really good, and they do a bad job of this sometimes. Depends on the writer. The really good moments in a Star Trek, they have all the technical gobbledygook. It's not terribly consistent all the time what the transporters can do or the deflector dish or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's a human issue solving the problem. It's Picard wrestling with his inner demons. or it is, that sort of thing that solves the problem. And the gobbledygook is just there to be fun, and it is much more on this side. If you watch a movie like Gattaca, we're much more over here. You know what can be done, and they still make it a human solution, but they don't break their rules.
That's kind of what ruined the first, in my opinion, like the whole Force and stuff like that.
Right.
Through Star Wars movies, because they tried to take something that had inherently a sense of wonder and mysticism.
Yeah, and they tried to make it more. They tried to move it over here on this scale. Yep. And it was a bad move for these reasons. It was a very bad move for these reasons. So that's the whole. This is the problem with midi-chlorians. Is reader expectations and the sense of wonder and what was making people interested. So we'll do more of this next week. I do want to split you up into your writing groups.